Thank you all for being with us today. And Merry Christmas to everyone. This press conference that we're about to talk to you about certainly created a very Merry Christmas for us, and a not so very Merry Christmas for our group of folks who for many, many years has gone above and beyond to sell drugs in the Lakeland area. You know what's interesting about this particular operation is, first off, it is a joint investigation, much like we had last week that we talked to you about, but this one involves DEA, Haines City Police, Winter Haven Police as part of the HIDTA Task Force, LPD, the State Attorney's Office, FBI, and of course the Sheriff's Office working together. We knew that our kingpin here, Sean Bordeaux, who we'll refer to by his street name as Yoshi, was selling cocaine, selling great quantities of cocaine, and he dealt with suppliers that distributed it to street dealers, and they passed out a whole lot of drugs. As I've talked to my detectives and some of those with the Lakeland Police Department, we have all chased this guy around, as well as our federal partners, for years and years. And he was successful in avoiding us because he only sells drugs to a very small group of people that are directly around him. And over the years, if he ever dealt drugs to people on his way up to the status he has now, and they were ever arrested, that was the last time he acknowledged that they were even alive. But let me give you the background. He lives in Eaglebrook, a gated golf community in South Lakeland, but he doesn't deal any of his drugs there. He's insulated, and as a result, he was tough to get. But working with our state attorney's office, and we certainly appreciate their assistance, we were able to do an electronic intercept of his communications pursuant to an authorized court order by the state of Florida. And ultimately, after monitoring his communications as well as his compadres in this particular operation, on December the 5th, agents, detectives with a task force, we all swooped down upon him and one of his number one people, Corey Dunn, and arrested them. In this particular operation, Corey Dunn was actually selling the kilo of cocaine to Yoshi for $36,000. When we arrested Dunn, he had 5 garage door openers in his car. So the detectives took the 5 garage door openers. We suspected that he had them to get him into stash houses. We went to areas where we had surveilled him in the past, and voila, up raises one of the garage doors, and that is one of the places whereby we subsequently were able to serve a search warrant. So when it culminated, we served a lot of search warrants and a lot of arrest warrants and put a lot of people in jail. We served 6 search warrants, 18 arrest warrants. We had 1 PC arrest. Overall, we seized 5 pounds of cocaine with a street value, by the time it's stepped on or broken down and sold at the street, of worth about $250,000. We seized over $225,000 in cash and drugs and guns. We saw that 9 of the 19 were on public assistance. Now, I'm going to keep wearing y'all out about this until you finally use it on the news a little bit. Whenever you don't have to work because you're sitting home getting public assistance and selling drugs to the kids in our community, that's a bad deal. And the people have a right to know that. They have a right to know that almost 50% of the people that we arrested in this operation were getting federal money to sit at home and do absolutely nothing except sell drugs. And it's hard to understand, but I've even made y'all a picture here since sometime, some of y'all use my quotes and some of you don't, so I made you a picture here. You notice the cash in the hand and the EBT card in the other hand? When we made this one hit, this person had not only their EBT card or the food stamp card, but they had almost $4,000 in cash money. I know that when you work really hard and pay your taxes, like the overwhelming majority of the people of the community do, we're glad to help those that are truly in need. These drug dealers aren't in need of any federal assistance. And we need to trash them as much as we can. And I hope y'all put that on the news in some form or the other. But if you miss the opportunity to do that, if they'll look at our Facebook, we're going to run them around on our Facebook. And I believe Lakeland's going to do the same thing. And then y'all can explain to the people why y'all didn't put it on the evening news, because you can say, it's like Grady Judd. He does that every time and we're tired of it. So let's go over my cards for the day. Jonathan McKinley. We need to focus on this guy. Jonathan has an outstanding warrant for trafficking in methamphetamine. He is the only one of the group that is still at large today. We're told that he left the county. We know that we did a search warrant. We got $10,000 and a gun from a rental unit of his. But he's the guy that's wanted. He's the guy that's at large today and the only one that is unaccounted for. I got a message for Jonathan. Jonathan, whether you spend Christmas in our jail or you don't, we're going to be looking for you, and we're going to make sure that if you're not in jail on Christmas, that you are looking over your shoulder on Christmas Day, because not only are we looking for you, we're going to have Santa Claus looking for you too. This is a guy I got to tell you the story about. So Theodore is the brother to Yoshi. And Theodore's involved in a dope deal with our undercover agent. Theodore is in a barber shop. He gives the dope to his mama to take outside to deliver to the undercover agent. Boom, we arrest them. Theodore beats it in court. He won't take the rap for his mama, who actually delivered. He handed it to mom in the barbershop. Mom took it out, gave it to the undercover. He let his mama take a 10-year ride in state prison for delivering his dope. Yoshi not only will not deal directly with him anymore, he won't even talk to him. Our goal is to make sure Theodore is in state prison, and we want him in state prison for longer than his mother is on his last rap that he beat. Margaret Kirkland told our detectives and task force members that she worked for the Habitat of Humanity. And we thought she was interesting in that she was an active player in this. Well, maybe when we get her in state prison, she can build on some prison cells or something, since she was no longer to help with the Habitat. Will Griner is a paralegal. He actually ordered up dope while he was in the law library at the county courthouse and received dope in the parking lot of the courthouse. He's on food stamps. He said, "Oh, I know Grady Judd. Call him." "Well, William, sorry I hadn't had a chance to talk to you, but I got some of my detention deputies that will ask you tonight, how's dinner going for you?" Nicole. Nicole's an interesting sort of person. She said, hey, her legitimate money was from the porn movies that she made. And we said, what about your prostitution activity? Well, you got me on that. So she's in the porn industry. She's a prostitute. She sold drugs for the Yoshi operation. And she also made the statement to the detectives when we arrested her. I forgot my portable stripper pole. We didn't get her last week on the prostitution sting. She was busy with her drug deal. Onisha Davidson. Now, Onisha Davidson was really upset when we arrested her at her place of work, DCF. You see, she works for Gulf Coast Family Community Center, which is contracted to another organization which is contracted to DCF to offer protective services, and she's a caseworker. She's got a college degree. Because she had a legal job, she was the one that was kind of washing the money. So she would collect the drug money. It was given to her to run through her account. So when it was time to show, according to the Nebia holes, you've got to prove where the money came from, they would use Onisha Davidson. So she was really upset. I understand she's out of jail, but here's a message for Onisha. Oh, Onisha, you're still under further investigation. So you may be home Christmas Day, or you may not. But if you are, you may spend New Year's in the county jail, or you may not. But I tell you this, you're going back to jail again, because we're not finished with you. The investigation's still underway. And here's Mr. Dunn and Miss Edler. Now, you see their gold bracelet. That was valued at $20,000. That was to be sold so that they could hire attorneys. They also had $4,297 in her possession, and that's her EBT card. So get this, okay? Here's her gold chain. Oh, if you're her attorney, you didn't get it because we got to her first. We got the $4,000 that was going to go to the lawyer. Eat your heart out, defense attorneys. We know that when we served the search warrant on Sonoma Drive in Lakeland, that there were stacks of designer clothes. Handbags, accessories, shoes from Gucci, Louis Vuitton. There was all kinds of wrappers for bills that were left behind. Heat sealing packaging. But the bottom line is they were making thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Now, when they would talk to each other and they wanted to make a point, they would say, GW, God's Word. They would say things like, they're after us, they're chasing us, GW, God's Word. I've seen the surveillance, GW, God's Word. Well, instead of saying, I swear, they'd say, GW. Well, we got them, GW. We still have you under investigation, GW. We're going to arrest a lot of y'all again, GW. Have a Merry Christmas, GW. Chief?
Thank you, Sheriff. Good afternoon. I just want to reemphasize that drug traffickers are not restricted by jurisdictional boundaries, and neither should an effective enforcement plan. It's only through cooperation among all levels and jurisdictions of law enforcement that we will be able to curtail drug trafficking, which greatly impacts the safety of our communities. It's been proven that guns and illegal drugs seem to go hand in hand, and all too often they have lethal consequences. One of the reasons Lakeland's violent crime has dropped by 24% is directly related to the relationships we have between our local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies during operations such as these. The 19 suspects that were charged should serve as a stark reminder that all of the agencies represented here today will work endlessly and do what's necessary to ensure that they are incarcerated. It is now my pleasure to introduce Supervisory Special Agent Terry Rahl.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Sheriff, once again for inviting us over. I don't have a prepared statement, and I don't know that I could ever do the same justice to the words that you just heard from Sheriff Judd anyway, but this was an easy call for the FBI. The HIDTA team called us in May to get involved with this undertaking, and it looked good from the very beginning. We've got personnel from both the Sheriff's Office and the Lakeland Police Department that we work with every single day at the Safe Streets Task Force. Again, this was a very easy call. I'm glad they did. We've built this relationship to where I'd say, Sheriff, I would describe this cooperative team that we have in Polk County as extremely healthy. And so we did come over, we did assist. Again, HIDTA-led effort from start to finish, and if the Bureau can help at times like this again, we stand ready in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Where did the drugs ultimately come from in the first place?
They ultimately originated out of Colombia, South America. And they made their way into this country, and ultimately they ended up with a multi-kilo drug dealer, Yoshi, and Dunn here in Lakeland.
And so you bust this ring. How many, do you suspect that this will have an immediate impact on the supply locally, and how soon is another ring going to take over for the void?
Detectives from the police department and the sheriff's office that work the Lakeland area tell hit that they've seen in a long time. Certainly they'll scramble and look for other sources. Certainly we've taken somebody else's competition away, but we're after them as well. So it was huge because Yoshi had been so insulated and had been untouchable for so long that he had no idea he was about to be arrested, because after all, he lives in a upscale gated golf community in South Lakeland where he does not do any of his drug dealing at all. So it was quite a shock to him and all of his colleagues when our task force came down upon them.
Can you put a time frame on how long he's been with this guy?
Our folks tell me that for 10 or 15 years we've chased him around. And when we would start to get close to him, he would just cut ties with anyone who we had worked up to.
Is living in Eaglebrook part of the plan to make it appear that he's not this guy?
It's interesting. Whenever our detectives tell us, he drove nicer cars than we can afford. He lives in a nicer home, nicer community than we can afford. You can see that he's been living large off of his drug dealing. And at the end of the day, our goal was to make sure that he went to the county jail where felons belong. So he had perfected this, and it had worked for him for a long time, but he didn't count on getting wrapped up with the Lakeland Police, the Sheriff's Office, the FBI, and HIDTA, who all piled in on top of him, and with the great state attorney's office and prosecutor who said, look, we're going to make this guy a project, and we're going to catch him solid. And that's exactly what they did.
Sheriff, you said the electronic intercept was key. Did you catch him talking on the phone about drug dealing? Or
We called him in several different forms of electronic communication that were authorized under the search warrant and the court-ordered electronic intercept. Several different forms of communication.
Can you talk for a moment about the ripple effect that you see when you get the users, the dealers, the suppliers off the street? Do you see other crimes go down, break-ins, robberies, whatever?
There's always a ripple effect. When you take somebody off that's been supplying your inner city neighborhoods and you see the violence that we looked at a couple of years ago, what role did he play in that? What role did his lieutenants play in that to causing the violence that we experienced in the city of Lakeland? You know, they talk about living large, and they do. But there's always, this day is always coming. There's a judgment day for all of us, and his came. And hopefully that'll be the stark reminder to say something to these young kids out here that are looking at emulating him, to say, maybe I just need to work a 9 to 5 and do the right thing. That's the message that we want to send.
California passed Prop 47, and among other things that Proposition 47 did, it said, hey, these low-level drug offenders are not violent, they're not dangerous. You know, we need to work on really violent criminals, so this is no big deal at the street level. Well, when Prop 47 passed, if you'll go Google Los Angeles, you'll see in like the first 6 months, their property crime went up 25%, and their violent crime went up 50%. So the folks that were dealing with these people are the ones that are stealing, breaking into your homes, committing robberies to get the money to buy the drugs. And the more these people that are on the streets doing this, the more crime you have. California and Los Angeles is seeing that social experiment's not working. Now you turn to Florida, where we have minimum mandatories, where we go after bad guys and lock them up for 85% of their sentence. You see crime in the state of Florida is at a 43-year low. The reality of it is we know that they were stealing, that they were robbing, that they were committing all kinds of theft and fraud to get money to buy this drug, because that's what they do. They don't work. They're too busy going down with their EBT cards and cashing that out.
Sheriff, you talked about the government assistance. What can be done to put a stop to that?
Well, first off, it's fraud, because they're having to fraudulently say, I don't have any means of support, or I need this help. Of course, you can't go down and write, you know, I'm selling $50,000 worth of drugs a month. But there has to be follow-up by the state and federal government. And it's simple to me. When you lock these people up, you go, look, we gave you this assistance to help you because we were under the impression, according to the documents you filed, you really needed help. So you come off the list, not just for now, but for the future. There has to be some federal and state interest in stopping the stealing of billions of dollars of public assistance that goes on nationwide. And go ahead and try to dig into it. They'll tell you it's all confidential. It's not public record. Well, shouldn't we have a little transparency as to who's ripping us off when it comes to public assistance? You know, certainly I don't want them to be publicly embarrassed if there's a legitimate need, but once you determine that they're stealing stuff from the taxpayer while they sit at home and sell drugs to your kids, that's problematic, and I think the community's got a right to know that. So we all need to pay attention. You could say billions of dollars statewide and nationwide on fraudulent receipt of public assistance funds if they pay attention. Any other questions?
Can we ask you something about something you guys just posted on Facebook about theft at a Goodwill store? You up to date on that?
I know that we had a lady that went in, I think, 3 different times and was stealing from a Goodwill store. I don't know whether or not she was on public assistance or not, or I would have told you that. But, you know, how low can you go? You know, you're stealing from people who are donating to Goodwill, who ostensibly are turning this around at a really, really, really good price for the people who need to use Goodwill stores. Once again, it's sensitive to us at the holiday, over the holidays, but it's sensitive to me anytime somebody steals something that belongs to somebody else. And I think she's on tape 3 times. Frustrates me. But we will give her some orange clothes that she doesn't need to get from Goodwill. We'll provide them at the county jail when we take her down there. Okay?